chaos you're talking about, and it is going to be reflective in gold and silver and Bitcoin. You said Bitcoin would go
Yeah.
up, and sure enough, it sure did.
Yeah, we passed a major temporal milestone here, which was Bitcoin crossing over the value of gold in US dollar terms. And that was a temporal marker for movement in silver. Unfortunately, at the moment, they've stopped on silver in terms of the price, but I think that's actually kind of very enlightening because it now shows us where the mark in the sand is. And so I think we can be very supportive of Bill Murphy of GATA, who's saying that, well, at this point, I think he said it was like $18.20 or some number he had. But within the $18 range, I've got a lot of emotional support here saying that the powers that be are very much afraid of it breaking over that level. And they actually fear its breakout as being uncontrolled once it does go over that level. So we're right there. We have the emotional chaos on their side. We have the building emotional chaos at a political level, insofar as the dying political elite are concerned. Now, here's where my data would disagree with their assessment. They are of the opinion, because they're so isolated, that they sit in their vast urban centers surrounded by millions of people just itching to rise up against the tyrannical Trump regime. And that further, that there's this unspoken mass of supporters out in the great flyover states to aid them in this effort. And that's at least their narrative that they've got running at the moment. Some of those involved may understand that they're actually at best going to fight a losing guerrilla battle, but there is no emotional support for this. The intergenerational emotional support
Wow.
for the thing is waning. So with the emotional levels we saw in December that provided the impetus for the support are down about a third
Whoa,
in
that's
this
a
most
big
recent.
drop.
Exactly, in this most recent processing. And so if the trend continues, by the time we reach the hiatus or the early part of June, where the chaos kind of abates for a little bit economically, during that period of time between now and then, we might lose another third of the emotional push for this. So that's where we're actually seeing this turning going on, and that accounts for our new rise in the support numbers for the administration as a whole. It's awful hard to argue with success, even if you're just hearing the rumors of the success in the form of the pedophiles being arrested, etc.
So,
And I'm glad, actually, I'm glad. Let me intrude and say I'm very, very pleased that we have this soft voice approach to the arrests and so on, and that it's proceeding as it is, because this is the way in which serious people conduct business.
and you think that top people are going to go down with this? I mean, top big name
One
people.
one third of our broadcast media personalities, according to our data sets, I'm 30% to somewhere up to maybe 40%. Of those famous faces, is how the data sets describe them, will either be arrested or will flee the country. So
You're kidding.
that's what either due to their own actions or to supporting the actions of others that are going to get them into trouble. So we've got a lot of data in there that says, that these people are actually going to flee the country and seek asylum elsewhere.
And this is all because, and this is why they're fighting. I'm sorry, I'm circling back, but this is why they're fighting so hard. The media is fighting so hard because some of the top people in the media know they're up to their necks with sex trafficking and pedophilia. Either they are doing it or they know about it and are helping other people cover it up. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They have skin in the game, and that skin is hurting already, and they're afraid of getting it sliced off.
Wow, that's big. And then tell me about the price of silver. You're saying that the price of silver is going to actually at some point, and I know you're a big fan of Bitcoin because it's much harder to manipulate, but you're saying that the price of silver is going to go way higher, faster, maybe not more price-wise, but it's going to go up faster than gold and even Bitcoin. Explain
Correct. Correct. Silver's got a very interesting future ahead of us, because for a number of years, it's going to be increasingly a key component of increasing complex hyper technologies. And so the growth rate, the projection of emotional attachment to silver escalates as we go forward, even out into 2022, which is about as far as I trust my numbers on this. But basically what's going to happen is that silver will break out this year. The manipulation will shift and end for a bit. They'll try and and ratchet it back in, and then they'll fight this slippery upward from our viewpoint on price battle as they try and suppress the price, but every day they'll lose a little bit of their ability to suppress, and it'll just keep going on like that through this year. Then as we get up to the end of the year, somewhere, let's say October-ish, we'll get another breakout, and they may not be able to contain it at that point because of what's going to be coming out relative to technology then. And so the desperate need for silver will become dramatically evident to people all around the planet. And we actually have language of a great silver dishoarding over 2018 and 2019 in many Western countries where the governments, and via corporations who are seeking to make a profit, send people out to assay and purchase silver in the form of old silver plate, silver any way that it can be stripped off of anything, even getting to the point of buying old film stock chemicals, these kind of things, just to recover the silver. It'll become that precious as we go forward because of the many conflicting uses for it. The technologies, the hyper technologies, which will be energy related, and then the spin-offs that will be related to health, and then the monetization. Now, in the longer term,
and wait, I just want to interrupt you 1 minute.
Sure.
In the longer term, your data. Hold on, held that thought. So the price would have to be astronomical if they're trying to scrounge, silver off of film. The price would have to be astronomical. Am I wrong?
It's got to be at least as high as $600 an ounce because of the relationship of that particular temporal marker and that price that goes all the way back in our data to 2003. And so I think it'll be much higher than that, and it will escalate very rapidly towards parity with gold, and then it will basically get too expensive to use as money. It'll become a hyper rare, pretty much industrial chemical only over like these next few years. So that'll extend, as I say, at least out into the 2022 to 2024 range, and then we may get some kind of a change. But as of this point, it shows that silver mining becomes a very lucrative profession here 2019 onward, with the first mines just starting to show a little bit of stuff in the early 2020s due to new technology, not due to standard operating procedures.
And if silver is $600 an ounce at least, what does that put gold? 3, 2, 3, 4,000, 5,000? What does that put gold?
The next number we have for gold is about 4,800. Okay, so we show a slight pullback somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,800 US per ounce of gold. I would say that we're looking maybe before March of next year, just making a guesstimate about it because of it'll be 1/3 the value of Bitcoin at that point. So at the point that it does its pullback, it's a little complex, but in terms of how it shows up. But so say $4,500 would be about 1/3 of the value of Bitcoin at the time that gold is at that level. And this is when silver has already escalated that the amount of language devoted to it is more than double now. So that would imply, and also the language is spread beyond simply the business and the precious metals community. So it's much more what we might think of as a general population discussion. And that would imply that more than 1% of the populace is attempting to buy it. So I would suspect, again, that we're looking at well over $1,000 an ounce for silver at that point.
And 4,500 for gold, is that what you're saying?
4,800, and then it drops down about $300, and then the data shows that when it's dropped down to that point, just curiously, it happens to match for a brief period of time exactly 1/3 of the price of Bitcoin when gold does that little dip, and then it's back up again.
So I mean, you're telling Bitcoin's going to be $1,400 an ounce, $14,000 an ounce.
$13,000 or $13,008 or something. I think that is the target that the data shows as of February of next year.
Oh boy. You're talking about exploding gold, silver, and Bitcoin prices. Exploding.
No, sorry. Bitcoin is simply escalating. It doesn't explode until 2019.
Oh, but gold and silver explodes and tries to catch up with Bitcoin, but it won't. Bitcoin just is on an arc where it's just going to continually go up.
Let me give you some shocking numbers here. If you just looked at it against Bitcoin, against existing stockpile of gold right now, and you recognize that they both had attributes that made them similar, there's one Bitcoin available on the planet for every 1,000 ounces of gold.
Oh boy. Huh. That's so yeah. Wow. 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 And you can't and can't you just manufacture more Bitcoin?
No, there's the finite limit of the 21 million that'll be created, and that's it. And thereafter, we have to really, thereafter in the Bitcoin community is when things get really interesting for us, because then we start mining through, so to speak, processing through all the decibits and millibits and spreading out the wealth around the planet. That's at least the Chinese approach, is that when the Bitcoins are all mined, then it becomes very interesting, because then you can actually do things with the money, so to speak, and the wealth that it represents in a way that we can't quite now, because the focus is on creating that next Bitcoin, as opposed to shoving more value further down, so to speak, into decibits and millibits.
And where do you think ultimately, in the 2020, 2025 range, where do you think gold and silver end up? In the years 2020, 2025, whatever, in that time frame?
Well, we don't have numeric values, okay? We rarely get those. We have emotional quantifiers that are applied. And so for silver, we have language that says that the people that are the silver stackers are going to have multiple generations in their families praise their names for being so smart, because these guys will be creating fortunes that will travel down several generations in a family. So that gives you some idea.
Huh, wow, unbelievable. And I wanted to get into the nastiness, and I want to end up with, as I did last time, Antarctica and Mars. I will explain that in a minute. I wanted to go with this fighting retreat. That the elite could pull economic dirty tricks. That's what I wrote down. Let me make sure I wrote this down. Economic dirty tricks. And they backfire. At least that's what I read in your report. Is that what we have coming? Economic dirty tricks? This is all part of the chaos?
Correct. And the reason they're going to backfire it's the same reason that the media tricks are backfiring on them now, as the population has evolved beyond the level of gaming that